Hasbro, Galoob, Jack Pacific, you name them, you have some sort of connection with them. We talk about many things in pro wrestling. We talk about wrestling psychology. We talk about matches, marketing. We've had the privilege of talking about it from a merchandise standpoint as well. One of those key merchandise standpoints is action figures. They resonate with everybody to one degree or another, and they are a core, and I mean core, part of pro wrestling merchandising. To me, the second biggest thing behind a t-shirt is the action figure. All of our favorites have had them. We've dreamed of having them. Some of us have made our own custom versions of ourselves. And in my opinion, this current era of pro wrestling is the golden era of pro wrestling action figures, because for the first time ever, we have more than one option to buy and build our collections and our interstellar pro wrestling federations. And I'm talking with somebody who's at the forefront of entering that arena and that conversation, someone I've known for a lot of years, and I'm really happy that it's someone I know and has a good heart and putting a fantastic product out there. Ladies and gentlemen, for TRC, Top Rope Collectibles, Jordan Davidson joined the program. The following conversation is scheduled for one fall. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you for having me.
This is a
I'm quite excited because, like you said, we've been friends quite a long time, and connection was kind of lost after my last venture's social media ended. But yeah, I'm glad that we're back in touch and doing this, to be honest.
Yeah, no, this is really, really nice. And I like, I told you I'm buddies with Rocky Turner, and I like seeing my friends do big things, whether it's wrestling or not. And you like seeing people. There's something about your internet friends, your pen pals, your virtual pen pals, if you will, that unlike the pen pal era, you get to see their growth, see what they're doing. So when I found out that it was you doing the Top Rope Collectibles thing, I was like, oh my gosh, I've known this guy for years through Facebook figure groups. The figure that caught my eye the most was when you were kind of pooling some feedback, and I chimed in about the upcoming Buff Bagwell figure that you're doing in the Galoob style. So I'm going to set this up. It's a long-winded question, so bear with me. And I mean it when I say it, and there it is. You guys are getting to see it firsthand. That is, in fact,
there is actually a couple of changes.
The Marcus Bagwell Galoob.
Yeah, there's a couple of changes on the final product. The hair's a little bit more bouffant, and the smile's less cheesy, but this is pretty much the figure.
And that's something I want to touch on in a bit, that you changed the smile because you gave options out there about if you want it to be all teeth or grand and different things. Let's face it, a lot of people are making action figures right now. A lot of people are making wrestling figures right now. And they're all kind of niche in their own way. We have, Mattel's making retros. They just got into the LJN space. Of course, there's big rubber guys. Hastel makes some Hasbro-style retros and so forth. To me, this is unique. It's kind of big rubber guy, kind of not, kind of LJN, kind of not. This is the Galoob style figure. Statuesque, no articulation. And in the last 10 years, I feel like in the figure space for wrestling collectors, it's gotten a lot more love and appreciation because we all had them, but we didn't know much about them, but they weren't mass produced like the WCW Toy Biz license. You come in, you say, I want to make wrestling figures. And you, in theory, could make almost anything, right?
Yeah.
And you chose the Galoob style. How deliberate, how cerebral was that? Because you could have, in theory, gone the route of trying to make something with Mattel articulation. You could have just done retros like many people are doing, which there's nothing wrong with. But you went to a sub-niche of a sub-niche. And that's what fascinates me about your decision.
So it wasn't really my decision. My partner in crime, Matt, we've been friends coincidentally because he asked me on his podcast when I used to do the 3D printing, and we've been friends ever since, probably 7, 8, 9 years.
Oh, wow.
When I gave up the 3D printing, I told him that I wanted to get into something official and stop kind of doing bootlegs.
Okay.
And he said he wanted to be involved. I ummed and ahed about doing Hasbro's. I'd never do a 6-inch figure. I say never. I never plan to, because for me, I don't play with my toys, so I don't need articulation.
Okay.
They stay on the shelf. Even when I had the Elites, I had a bunch of WCWs. They'd stayed on the shelf, and that was it. Sometimes I'd even glue the arms in position so that they never moved. So I was going to do a Hasbro, but it's very overpopulated even a couple of years ago, it was quite populated. So Matt
Sure.
was like, "Why don't you do a Galoob?" And I'd had them before, and I was working on a custom Galoob, and I was like, I don't know, to be honest, Matt, like, because they weren't really massive, and even when I started it, there was like a small following for them.
Yeah.
They were quite rare and pricey, and I think since we've come around being part of the Galoob community, I feel like we have brought a lot of eyes onto it, which has brought new collectors in, and there's a lot more for sale. Prices have dropped, which is good for collectors.
Yes.
But I just followed Matt's lead. Matt runs his own, or ran his own wrestling company in New Zealand. He's a lot younger than me, so he's like on point with trends and stuff. And he just said, "George, like, do Galoobs. No one's doing it. Let's give it a try."
Okay.
So that was literally the decision.
Now with that, you come and say, which is great, no one's doing it, which is kind of what you want to do, right? No one's doing Galoobs. What's the decision of, okay, we've narrowed that down? Because now you can go a lot of ways, right? You can try to get somebody that had a Galoob in an attire that we didn't see. For example, you might have been able to get Lex Luger, even though I think he's on a WWE deal, but there were...
He's on a Legends deal.
He's on a Legends deal. So there's options there, but instead, you decide with guys like Cold Scorpio, guys like Bagwell, all right, I'm going to fill the void of people we didn't get in that line had it continued. Walk me through that process.
So I feel that, I'm looking at my collection there now, and I feel like with Lex, I don't need to remake Lex. He's made. Sid's one I would consider because the singlet down to the trunks, but
sure,
we just wanted to add to it, I guess. My collection is almost complete. It wasn't anywhere near it when I started, but we just wanted to make figures. PN News was our first release, but he wasn't our first. He wasn't our first plan because I was trying to do something with the people that I knew. So I know this has been said before, but my first plan was Brian Cage because I'd made the Brian Cage custom figures and he liked it, and we only sporadically spoke, but he was quite interested in being our first figure, but with his AEW contract, things didn't work out that way.
Right.
So we had to pivot, and we landed on PN News. Me and Matt both used to work for Sean at KWK, so we knew the history of PN News with Galoobs,
and to show you how small the figure world is, even though he doesn't have them anymore. I was part of the focus group for KWK's collector cases, the protective cases, when he did that in 2021, I think it was.
Oh, okay. I think I was probably around in 2021.
Well, I think that might have been the first or second time that we encountered each other, because I think you were in that focus group. It was me, Mandy, a few of the guys from the Asylum.
Well, Nathan, who was probably in that focus group, he is my is what I call my historian.
Okay.
So he's a lot more knowledgeable about wrestling than I am. I like making things. I like creating things. I like showing things, but my knowledge is very limited. So I'll say to Nathan, for example, Cold Scorpio, give me the best 3 attires that you can think of, Nate. Okay. Tell me what matches they were from. Why are they so important? So he goes back. So
you're more the mechanics and the logistics of it, if you will.
I wouldn't even put myself at that, to be honest. I pay the bills and I sign the contracts.
Okay.
I couldn't do what we do without the team.
Okay.
Obviously, I make decisions, but my decisions are always passed through the group. I want their opinions. Recently, we brought on another guy that I call a stat man. So his name's Bradley. He lives up in Scotland, and he's the biggest WCW guy that I've ever known. And I'll say to him, Brad, like, I need Too Cold's accurate height. He's like, accurate height or WCW accurate? And I'm like, well, whichever one suits me best. So he runs off. He gives me all the finishing moves. The stats on the front of the card, for example, the text, that's based off his knowledge and his opinion and what he likes. Like I said, I guess I'm just the face of the company, but I couldn't do it without these people. So Nathan was quite likely in that focus group. However, we didn't know each other then. We just happened upon each other after I'd started Top Rope, to be honest. And he's just part of the team.
Now, after you, of course, we talked about how PN was first. You make the decision. How did you acquire a conversation with PN? Because he was kind of a dormant figure at that time. He'd pop up sporadically for signings, for shooting interviews, but essentially he wasn't public in the wrestling space. How did you guys have the conversations with PN? And then who did you go after afterwards? Because you're like, okay, because the PN figure got a lot of buzz and a lot of people wanted it, and you had the variants, and you're like, okay, like we hit a double, let's go for another at bat. So how did you acquire him and then your next license after? Because the hardest part is the negotiation process, and that's what people don't get.
PN News, Paul, is one of the nicest people I've ever spoke to. I don't remember how, but someone gave me his email address. This was, like I said, this was before Nathan was on board. It might have been Matt. Someone gave me his email address, so I just messaged him. We hooked up a phone call, and I told him, obviously, I'd worked on his previous Hasbro release for KWK, and he told me his price, and I agreed, and that was that. We'd already been working on a few deals. I'm not even sure. I don't think he was our first signee, but he was our first announced figure and our first release. I think the Paul Orndorff signing was either before or it was there or thereabouts with PN News. But we wanted to go with PN News first, purely because there was the unreleased prototype, and we wanted to start with a bang, to be honest.
Right.
So this is based on the unreleased prototype. There are a few changes to it, but it's pretty much what people would be expecting to get.
No, but if you just bring that a little closer, that is literally any year figure of the year candidate, and you blend that into your Galoobs, and it looks like it was made in '91. So I love it.
The only standout difference to it at the minute is obviously it's brand new and fresh and shiny, and there's no butt rub on it or any of that stuff. But
right.
I don't want to blow our own trumpet, but I feel like we really hit the ground running with that one.
Absolutely. It was the right kind of splash for sure.
Yeah, no complaints from anyone, to be honest. The colors are nice, everything it looks like a 90s figure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think people don't realize like how there were so many toys in the 80s and 90s, but a lot of them lacked articulation, right? So something like the Hasbros that had the moving arm, or the press slam thing, that was a big deal as compared to, like, again, statuesque figures similar to these, which would then lead into the original San Francisco toy makers. Now, if you know me in my personal life, you know this. So this is news, if you will. I love Paul Orndorff. One of my absolute favorite wrestlers ever. Personal top 10. He's always on there. Paul Orndorff is like kind of the way Kevin Nash describes Scott Hall, in the sense of like, if you tell God to make the perfect wrestler, that's how I see Paul Orndorff. And even his last run in WCW to me is so understudied. One of the things that I loved about when you announced Mr. Wonderful in this line was you made it again. You made it fit to your line, to the Galoob line. You stuck to the traditions, and you offered the accessory of the mirror, and you offered the trunks in various colors, and you didn't do the red, the white, the blue of the WWF run, if you will. You made sure that these were colors that identified with that WCW run. I'm a little surprised that I don't see a little Pretty Wonderful in there, but maybe there's something I don't know. But talk to me about talking with Travis because he holds the estate now. I haven't met Travis. I get so shy to message him, but I hear he's a nice man. So that must have been a great process all the same.
Yeah, I'll just start on you pretty wonderful. So the red trunks is actually pretty wonderful. We did show that off very early. We haven't shown it off since because there hasn't been any images of the factory. Oh, hang on, no, I did. I posted it the other day. It is pretty wonderful. Someone else commented as well. It is pretty wonderful. The red trunks. I don't even have an image to show. I don't think, but
did you post that? I might have missed that one.
Yeah, let me just double check. It was about a week ago.
I saw the group. I saw the group photo you put of the different wonderful.
Yeah, so the group photo, it's down there.
Okay,
it does say pretty wonderful.
That's probably why.
That decision was made for a reason. Obviously, that's one half of a tag team, and looking to the future, I would like to fill that gap of the second half of the tag team.
Okay. Should be attainable because I know Zombie Sailor got him for
I've spoke to him.
Glory,
he's
so
a very, very nice man. And at the current situation, I've got 14 on the roster, I believe, 12 announced, 2 unannounced.
Okay.
What I don't want to do is get so deep into a roster that I'm just constantly chasing. So I have spoke to him, and he, like I said, he is a lovely man, and the plan is to speak to him again very soon.
Okay. What was it like talking with Travis then? Because you got him pretty much one of the first wonderful figures following his father's death, in essence, because we got the Legends figure, we're getting this one now. So what was that like?
Again, like honestly, every person that I've signed could go up there for the nicest man I've ever spoke to. Travis, I'd spoke to him. I think I'd spoke to him briefly when I was doing the customs, but I messaged him about this, and he got back to me, and he said, "Yeah, let's hook up a chat," because he likes to talk to people properly. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll do the same." And I'm sure we was on the phone for about 3.5 hours on a video chat, just talking about this, talking about life, talking about his dad. Like I said, he's just so nice. Afterwards, he said, like, everything about you, i.e. me, stands out. He agrees with my values, so on from there. So he was just happy to put it out. I know that there was the Hasbro figure from TRT that was not long after, so I'd imagine once we announced as they may have worked on that, but that didn't affect us because me and Travis was in communication. That was the reason that Paul Unduff actually got delayed slightly, because we didn't want to compete on the same, although the different figures, we didn't want to put 2 figures out at the same time.
Sure.
So, Travis gave us the heads up, and I said, yeah, let them go first, because we'll work on the other stuff that we've got anyway.
And they also came out with variants all the same, so it kind of blended out.
Yeah, so I think we were the first to pick the Paul Unduff license up. I would imagine there'll be many more, especially now that he's on this Legends deal with WWE. And
now we touched on this a little bit, and we're going to get back to Marcus Bagwell in a moment, but I want to talk about somebody in particular, and I want to show some renders behind it to Cold Scorpio, which to me, KWK, of course, is doing Flash Funk. To me, the fact that I think he has a Legends of Wrestling figure with Wrestling Superstore. However, the fact that nobody has poached one of the biggest pioneers of 90s wrestling from a hybrid wrestling standpoint of being a high flyer to Cold Scorpio. I loved the fact that you picked that up. I'm going to show a couple renders of that right now.
I think Zombie has him signed. I'm sure I've seen a Zombie figure with red tights, but it's not been released. I don't think it's out pre-ordered yet. No, it's not out yet. At the time, I wasn't even aware that Sean had signed him as Flash Funk. So,
yeah, I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, this went through the process, this one, quite a bit, because we had to get a couple of designers on it, because what we were trying to make wasn't translating. So we've had a couple of designers go through it. Unfortunately, the prototype came out with some print lines on the stomach.
Sure.
But barring that, I mean, my camera's so bad. I'll post these images on the socials as well. But what we wanted to do here, so again, this was Nathan's decision. He's kind of like
Sure.
splash move.
Sure.
You know, you can do other stuff. The head, we went through 3 different versions. The first one I was quite happy with myself. It was very galooby, but Charles Too Cold said, "Can we rework it?" And I said, "Yeah, of course, no problem." So we ended up doing a vote, and we went with what the most popular was. Too Cold liked it himself. Everyone else liked it, so we went with that. But the 2 of them together,
yeah, doing those dancing moves during the entrance and stuff like back in the day. Now, what is, because you mentioned you chose to do that pose to kind of get like a splash move sequence. That's got to be a huge part of the decision-making process, right? Because you want the poses to fit the character and the toy line itself, right? So
yeah,
are there challenges to that, or is it immediately coming to you? Because if you take a look at the Too Cold Scorpio figure and the way my brain's working with the Paul Orndorff figure, that's like a perfect pile driver for figure photography. Yeah. So the poses have to be just as big a part as trying to pursue the license, right?
Yeah. The poses, in most cases, we don't have anything to show the talent before we speak to them. We just discuss it, and then if they're happy, then we'll get our artist Charlie to draw a sketch, and then we'll show them and say, like, you know, this is the pose that we're proposing. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Originally, for example, Paul Orndorff was posed kind of fingers up, and the more we looked at it, it wasn't working.
Okay.
So we needed, like you said, something that's a bit pile driver, but to the point where, I mean, I look at Arn Anderson, and this is, you know, very, very similar.
Right.
But you've got to remember that if you go full pile driver, it's not going to stand up. So right. You've got to pivot to the exact point of the certain move that you're trying to do, where it gets across A, the move, but also B, you know, it actually stands up.
Right.
So with Too Cold, originally he had straight legs, but that would look weird as a splash, and then it doesn't stand up. It doesn't hold. If you wanted to, you know, put them in sort of a holding like this with straight legs, it's just not going to do that.
Right.
Again, the poses, a lot of the poses are more Nathan's decision, because he knows the moves. He knows it. I mean, Nathan chose this.
That's not too similar to the Barry Windham pose, right?
I can't see my Barry is on the top. It's similar to Scott Steiner and
yep.
Yeah, Barry as well. For me, I like poses. Like, you know, if I had Randy Orton, he'd be doing this. He wouldn't be in the middle of. He wouldn't be in the middle of like a punch.
Sure.
Yeah, but I know through speaking through the communities and asking people's opinions, a lot of them want moves as opposed to poses. So what we try to do is scatter between the two and give a little bit of everything.
Now with that, again, Bagwell, we see him in Jack Slime's toy line, retro style. What's that like? Because you're coming in post leg amputation with Buff in terms of negotiations, right? Or you have those stops and then the accident happens?
No, we've had Buff signed for quite some time, to be honest. So I mean, the accident was the amputation was long after we'd been. I think we'd already got the prototype out. So in terms of that, there was no effect on us as a company.
Now, this is a very selfish question. Huge Ric Flair fan. Is there any chance that you would even poach the subject, even though it's not a bad galoob? The Art Deco is the issue that everybody has. Would you consider, we saw it recently done with the Wrestling Superstars line, where it's Flair, Wyndham, and such in that line. Would you consider making a proper Art Deco Flair for this line?
The unreleased robe.
Yes, or something without lightning trunks with the actual initials and boots and such.
So it's very unlikely that I'd create a new in-ring Flair, because like I said earlier, there's no reason to. The only difference, I guess, would be different attires.
Right.
But as a collector myself, I'm quite happy that with what I've got, I don't feel the need to add on top of that. I'm not saying it would never happen.
Right.
I feel like people would be put off by it and feel it's more of a cash grab than like a genuine addition to the line, because it's already made.
Okay.
So not so much that one. The unreleased robe, yes, 100%.
Well, that I think that would be, I get that, because, and that says the integrity that you guys have as a company and you as an individual. Like, I can make a Flair figure, no problem, and it will sell. But if I go that route, I have to make one that really, because we got the blue trunks and the red, they're easy to get. Whereas the robe one, that would be like to dream the impossible dream from a replication standpoint. So I like your mindset.
The only thing with the robe one for me is when we made PN News and Diamond Stud, we heavily based it on the prototype. If I made that Ric Flair unreleased robed prototype, it would not have that fucking ass head.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because that is one of the worst likenesses I've ever seen.
Yeah, not to mention, and I still don't believe that Flair doing that photo, which has to be an off-shield candid of him going, like that with his teeth.
No,
that can't be a fucking test shot, right?
The thing for me is if I put that out like for like, and someone who doesn't know who we are or what we do looked at that, they'd say that's the worst figure I've ever fucking seen, and I'd have to justify myself.
Right.
So for me, what I've always said is, even with the unreleased prototypes of PN News and Stud, we've still added our own little touch on them to modernize them. So for example, Stud didn't come with an elbow pad.
Right.
So we've added one because he wore an elbow pad. He just didn't happen to wear one for that photo shoot.
Yeah.
So that's why I would 100% not make that awful head.
Yeah. No, it's weird
that they didn't just use the same head from the normal figure.
Yeah. Now, so I want to talk about this, right? So you have the Galoobs, and then we get original San Francisco toy makers, right? I like what you're doing. You wouldn't consider doing like the cartoony look of the OSF, right? Because I feel like that was something that kind of made, as an adult, that's something about the line that now I look at differently. Like, it's a great basic ass Hogan figure, but it's kind of like if Hogan got another cartoon in '94, right?
Yeah.
Like, I like the fact that you're keeping the integrity of the likeness of the guys, not characters, and I think that's something that you want to stay with also, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's quite hard to, when you're explaining it to your designers, quite hard that you need to say, right, this needs to be accurate, but also it needs to be a touch cartoony. That's quite hard to get across to them.
Sure.
I look at the Galoobs, and you know exactly who they are, but I wouldn't say that the likenesses are exactly spot on a lot of them. I'm just looking up there now. Sid looks great, but then you look at Pillman and it looks all right.
Yeah.
Sting, I don't think has got the greatest likeness, to be honest.
It's okay. I think it's his eyes also. Like, he has those gumball ice pop eyes.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's weird. Echo.
I wouldn't cartoonize any of the designs just for the sake of it. What I want to get across is that I feel like this is a continuation of the line. So we're not trying to give you the figures that you would have got in 1991. We're trying to give you the figures that if it had carried on until 2026. So there's things that we can do now that they couldn't have done then, for example. So,
Right.
I mean, the PN News, I love it, but if I was to design my own PN News, it wouldn't look like the prototype. So
Okay.
it's a difficult line. Like, they are a little cartoony, but there's no, like with Hasbro's, you've got weird proportions. You've got to kind of sit at like 80% realistic, human, accurate, and then add your little cartoony bits in afterwards.
Now, with that, because you mentioned, and that's a statement I want to touch on, you want to create something as if the line would have continued into 2026. With that, I feel like this is the guy that I would try to get. Would you ever do a Max Payne?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that somebody you've spoken to?
No.
Okay. Well, I think that's something that that should be on the vision board. Now, one of the things you mentioned, one of the things I like about independent toy companies in general, be it through one-to-one service, which you're offering, Patreon, Kickstart, you're offering updates, you're giving fan inputs, and you're making them feel as if you yourself might feel like head scan A is the way to go for that figure, but the feedback says no, we like C the best. And I think that's something that is selfless, and I love that. How important is that to you as an individual, and then for the business model? Like, at the end of the day, yes, I'm making action figures. Yes, they're for my consumption all the same, but they're for the general consumption of the fan. And what's that like for you from a fulfillment standpoint? Because it's got to be rewarding, because ultimately you're making a great fan base for a lot of awesome figures here.
It's it has its ups and downs. Like, I always ask for people's opinion because it does matter to me. I will ultimately have the final say, even if the poll suggests 99% want A and I want B. I will make B if I feel so strongly against it. But in most cases, like, as long as it doesn't look like shit and it's the best product that we can put out, I'm happy to go with other people's. Like I said, Too Cold, I was very happy with head A, but Too Cold himself wasn't. And then when we asked I don't know what saying fans, when we asked the customers what they wanted, I was like, yeah, I'm right. Like, I would have been happy with A. I'm happy with B. That's fine with me. We do the one thing that bothers me is stage 1, do you like this? Yeah. Stage 2, do you like this? Yeah. Stage 7, do you like this? Yeah. Right, this is the final model. And then someone will go, oh, well, I think the hair's a bit big. And it's like, why don't you fucking tell me?
Right.
6 months ago when I asked.
And it's funny because that's kind of the opposite of what I feel Mattel does. And I'm not shitting on them in that sense, because Mattel will come give you a reveal and then show you like, hey guys, this is what it's going to look like. And then at that point, it's like, oh, fuck, everybody hates the hairstyle.
I always say,
so I feel like you go through it in the proper fashion, which is terrible, versus as Mattel's like, hey guys, we got this new figure. And then everybody else is like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, I always try and say, like, it's not done until it's done. Once it's gone into mold, that's it then. There's no changes.
Yeah.
But Buff, for example, he was in prototype. He's been in prototype for a while. Then someone said about the hair, and so I spoke to the factory. They hadn't started the mold yet, and I said, right, delay it. We're going to make a change. That's no problem. But then once he's in mold, that's it. Then there's no more.
Yep.
There's no more changes.
Yep. Now, another thing that you did that I love, that I think is very smart, is that you tapped into independent pro wrestling. Obviously, there's all different types of people you could have made. Cardona, Myers, Ali Catches, all different types of people from across the globe, even, because UK wrestling is super, super, super hot right now. Having said that, you went with somebody that I've had the privilege of calling their matches through the years, and there's Joey Janela in all of his venomous, slithering glory. How did you come to land on Joey? Because that's a great pick to make a figure of an independent star, because that's what Joey is. Like, he is a wrestling star across the independents, and he does great business, and a toy, genius play.
Well, first off, you need to excuse the bad paintwork and the prints on these. But so when I mentioned doing a modern line, especially on the forums, people weren't happy.
Really?
They was like, we're WCW guys. That's the first time I've ever said WCW. We're WCW guys. That's what we want. And I'm like, that's cool, but you're my age, like 40. My son, who's 13, doesn't know who PN News is.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you were collecting WCWs in 1991, the people who used to watch, you know, bad knowledge, but people who used to watch AWA or something, they were looking at you saying, well, why are we having WCW cards? We only collect AWA. So someone had to give way for you.
Right.
So for me, it's like, you know, the nostalgia's there for the 90s and stuff, but my son's not going to go and buy a PN News figure, but he's going to buy a Joey Janela figure.
Right.
And his friends are going to buy Joey Janela. And, you know, wrestling is like, I don't know if it's at a peak, but it's definitely peaking, especially with merch tables and, you know, those sort of things. And just a figure like this, a kid's going to see that and say, that's my favorite fucking wrestler.
Right.
Who's this company?
Right.
And then, you know, I'm just trying to think of building for the future. There's only a limited amount of people that we can sign for the 1990 to 1994 era. We're going to run out at some point, or they're unattainable. So why not start our own new collection, basically? Joey was an easy choice. Joey's just fucking insane, Joey. Like,
he literally is insane.
I met him actually last year down in London, and he's a nice guy. But the thing with Joey is I felt like he's very toyetic.
Okay.
You look at, like, for me, we was going through all his attires, and I just think that on a shelf, I mean, you can't see the face properly there, but tongue out, tooth missing, that's just going to pop. And then the special edition, which is going to come potentially with a belt, we're working on that, and then it's going to come with the snake. How good? I honestly think, and this is blowing smoke up my own ass again, I honestly think this is a contender. This one specifically is a contender for figure of the year when it's done.
Absolutely. Once the paint and the deco's done, without question.
That is insane. Like, I don't want to sound biased. I'm trying to look at it from a collector's point of view. I see that on the shelf and I think, what the fuck is that?
Right.
It's just, you know, Joey was an easy choice. He's got so many cool attires. You know, the second version of this is going to be covered in blood.
Okay.
He's just an easy choice. He's likable. He's been in big matches even since we've signed him. Sabu.
Right. Sabu's nice match.
You know, Joey just does his own thing, and he's marketable, which is obviously something a business needs someone to be.
And he's a marketer. Like, he's going to push that figure at your shows.
Oh, 100%. Joey's
been. They get the deal. They get the figure, the merchandise. They just have it at their table. They do zero to get the word out there.
Yeah, well, he's done a lot for us, to be honest.
No, I'm sure Joey has. Yeah.
We almost had a really, really big deal signed, and it was through Joey. He's, you know, he messages every time I message. He's short. He doesn't say a lot, but he says enough. I just think you look at the independent stars now, and it's like, who's still up there? Who's been there for that long?
Yeah.
Joey's cool as fuck.
Yeah, no, he's the best dude. He's always been cool whenever I work shows with him and stuff like that. You mentioned having deals and stuff. You don't have to get into details, but are there names you can mention? Like, yeah, we tried. Yeah, we actually got him signed.
Yeah.
Close. Is there anybody that might have been in the cooker that we don't know?
So this is one that I regret. We wasn't deep into conversation, but I was talking to Ethan Page, and then I ummed and ahed, not on him. I ummed and ahed through my own decisions because I was working on other stuff at the time, and I let my communication lapse. And then next thing you know, he's fucking signed with WWE.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, we should have got that one.
That's just happenstance. Oh,
yeah, well,
that fucking blows.
That pissed me off a little bit, but it was my own fault. It wasn't his. He was a great guy. Again, speaking on emails and stuff. Yeah, we tried with QT Marshall to start with.
Okay.
So he was close. I wouldn't say close, but he was in communication with Matt in New Zealand. That just didn't happen purely because we pivoted from starting with a modern talent to PN News.
Right.
So they're the only two, I believe. We've spoke to other people. Like I said, I've spoke to Paul Romo. Things haven't been signed, but I would imagine that if things carry on with the communication that we had, then there will be a Paul Romo figure.
I see that being very, very, very feasible. Now, when you say you at least have the concept of the modern line, like, what are you, aside from notoriety and brand awareness, like, what are you looking for from the modern side of it? Because obviously there needs to be an ROI. That's one thing, but I know that's not your top thing.
No, obviously making money is important, but it's not. I just want to make toys and put cool shit out there, and for me, I've got four boys, and in 20 years time, or what am I, 40 nearly, 30 years time when I'm dead or something, and they've got their Top Rope Collectibles collection, and their kids say, "What's this?" and they say, "Oh, your granddad made this or something." That's what it is for me. It's not about like ego or anything, but knowing that I've done something. Because 100 years time, some kid finds a globe in a garden and looks it up on the internet, and they find Top Rope, and they'll say, "Oh, that was cool that someone tried to, continue that."
That's cool. Yeah.
I just like to put cool stuff out. I did the customs before and 3D printing, and it was all good, and it was a nice little well-paid hobby, but then it was never like official. And whilst it's not about the recognition, it's about the achievement.
Right.
So, if things would have ended after PN News, I would have been happy because I've made a figure. Like, not everyone gets to say that they've made a figure. Not saying that no one, that not everyone can, but I have. And I'm having conversations with wrestlers that I grew up on, or, we've got Danhausen signed.
Right.
My lad is Danhausen to the grave. So
great.
He tells his friends, my dad speaks to Danhausen, and I'm like, yeah, Danhausen probably thinks I'm just a nobody, but my kid's happy, and it's nice to just be involved with something, I guess.
Right. Have almost essential a purpose, an essential why. Now, Jordan, this is the rapid fire questions. First and foremost,
just have a quick water then before after.
Okay. First and foremost, favorite action figure ever that you own?
That I own. I only own Galoobs at the moment because I found myself in thousands and thousands of pounds worth of elites sat in a shelf that I was never even looking at.
Oh, wow.
So I got rid of those. My favorite Galoob. I've just had Big Josh come, to be honest, and he is a nice one. I don't know, to be honest. I'm gonna say it's one of ours. I'm probably gonna say it's Diamond Stud at the minute because it's our most recent one, and you can still buy it at topropecollectibles.com.
Who's the most underrated Galoob of all time?
Underrated. Ooh, I think Ron. Ron's a very nice.
Okay.
It's got that perfect level of accuracy and that tiny little touch of cartoon.
Right.
I like that. If I was to say, if I was to go back to like my elites and what my favorite figure was, then I had a Kevin Nash that I did a 3D printed head for.
Oh, wow.
from the WCW days, and that was my favorite. Like Mattel's head at the time wasn't great, but the figure itself was spectacular.
Really?
Yeah, I was well happy with that. Big Kevin Nash fan. I love Kevin Nash.
Oh, one of the nicest dudes I ever met. One person that you felt like should have gotten a Galoob and you can't understand why they didn't.
Vader.
Yeah. Vader's right at the end of that. Yeah.
Vader. I mean, you look at the unreleased prototypes, and there was Stud, there was Pierre News, Ricky Morton, Gibson. I guess they were working through the roster.
Right.
I mean, it's an open-ended question, really, because who should have got one instead of these guys? I'm not sure, but who should have one? Well, I'm hopefully going to be able to fill those gaps over the years anyway.
My pick is Terry Taylor. Like the TaylorMade Man not having a Galoob to me is a little sus. It's a little sus.
We can make it happen.
Okay, good to know. If you were to dabble in a different toy line, what would it be?
Chara Pro.
Okay.
I've got 3 Galoobs left, and when I'm done, I'm going on Chara Pros.
Okay.
I love them. Look, I was, when Matt said about the Galoobs, I was torn between going somewhere in between Galoob and Chara Pro. I love Japanese wrestling, especially the classic stuff when everyone's just wearing trunks or tights and big slaps and stuff. That for me, I would do Chara Pro.
Okay, I like that.
To add to that, I am actively seeking an avenue where we expand to luchadors and also to Japanese wrestling.
Okay, I like that.
I've got a few open communications.
Okay, I like that.
There's not going to be nothing announced yet because, like I said earlier, we've got to get through this roster first.
Right.
Too Cold, as we announced today, has got the purple packaging, so that's now opening the doors to our ECW series. So we're going to focus obviously on WCW. We've got the modern line, but now we can expand out. What we're going to try and do is hit people like Too Cold where they're WCW and ECW.
Right.
But eventually we are going to move into more ECW only guys.
Okay.
Because there's not, I know Zombie and Hassel, they put some ECW figures out, so there's definitely a market. There's a market for it, and I love ECW.
Right. I definitely, considering our age bracket, we all have a soft spot for ECW. If you could, the one person you have to get on your ECW toy line,
Mr. Foley.
Okay, and he's kind of sort of up for grabs now. That's what word on the street says.
Not until June.
I gotta say this was awesome, and the biggest takeaway for me is I love seeing other people's passions come out, and I could tell when you talk about your product and its execution with pride, it's very visible how passionate you are about bringing a proper alternative to the wrestling toy space right now, because there's so many, and I really think you went for something that was genius in strategy, but the fact that you're again doing it with care, making people accurately, making sure that the attires match up to the era, awesome. Because you could have just said, yeah, it's a Galoob and it's Paul Orndorff and he's wearing white, and you could have just collected your money and ran. But you're putting the dedication into it, and I really admire that.
It's quite annoying sometimes how picky we are.
Right.
Especially Nathan. Nathan's eye is very sharp, and this is why some of the models have took a little bit longer than we wanted, because whilst there's a figure that's good isn't good enough.
Right.
I mean, Joey, that paintwork is horrible. Joey went in for 10, 15 different changes because every time something improved, something else wasn't right. He was too jacked on the last change, where obviously Joey's not a jacked, you know, he's not a very muscular guy. So it's trying to, you know, and he's very small, very short as well. So it's hard to produce a short figure that's still big in stature.
Yeah, still wide.
You know, so it is annoying how picky we are. Like I said, luckily I've got fortunately I've got a good team. Like I can just set them tasks, and
Right.
if I said to them, you like make a decision and I'm not going to be involved, I'll just look at it when it's finished. I would be happy with everything that they do, because they know it. You know, if I died and I said to my kids in my will, you need to go through Matt, I'd be happy knowing that Matt would make all the decisions, knowing what I would do.
Right.
Our artists are great. I never have to tell them to change anything. I just say, this is what I want, and they'll say, Pete, for example, the one who does the packaging artwork, he'll say, what pose do you want? And I'll say, I don't care. I want what makes you happy to draw, because if you're drawing something that you don't enjoy, it's going to show.
Right.
So go away, look at Google, look at YouTube, look at all the stuff that you need to. Here's the reference photo, for example, draw it. And that's how I get the best work out of them.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that you're very direct in giving your team those marching orders, if you will, because you're executing success in essence. I really love everything about this. I'm so glad that that you gave me your time to get this out there and drop some of these prototype exclusives, because you could have done this with somebody with a way bigger platform. But getting to talk to you and seeing this line grow has been really awesome.
Platforms don't really mean much to me. Our team is kind of a team, like a band of misfits, I always call us. You know, without going into too much detail, me and Matt are like outcasts of KWK. Pete was just doing drawings for himself and no one had recognized him. Charlie had started doing some sketches for Matt's company and again, no one had recognized him. We've just brought Carl J Draws into us so he can start doing us some sketches. I know he's not had like the greatest time in his professional career, shall we say. So I just feel like we're all kind of, you know, just hungry to just work and to just do stuff. Our new designer is a young lad. He was brought to me by a friend of mine, another internet friend of mine, and you know, he's messaging me and he's like, no one's ever spoke to me the way that you do. And I'm like, yeah, because why would I treat you like shit? And he's like, oh, I'm so happy to work for you. And I said, you don't work for me, you work with me. Like, we're a team. If you're not happy, I'm not going to get the best out of you. And that's all it is. You know, we're a team at the end of the day. I just, it's just my company, I guess, by law.
No, but I think at the end of the day, we're a team. And I think that's something that in its simplicity is staying with me right now. Let the fans know what's your next release. What's the socials for the figure line? What can we see and expect from TRC?
So topropecollectibles.com. That's the main website. We ship worldwide. We have distribution sites, as we call them. J&J Figures. They'll deal with all your your US orders. Slam Collectibles will deal with all your Canadian orders. Go Figure Collectibles are your Australian orders. Everyone ships worldwide, but it's obviously cheaper if you order from your local region. Next release, Buff Bagwell, is currently still up for pre-order. It's been quite a long pre-order purely because we've been waiting for Too Cold because they're coming out as a 2-pack.
Right.
Now that we've shown off the prototypes, and I'll post them on the socials later tonight or tomorrow, the pre-order will probably go live at the end of the month. Paul Orndorff is still available to order. He hasn't shipped yet, but he won't be long. He's the next one to land, followed by Buff, Too Cold, Joey, Danhausen.
Okay.
All of them are coming up for pre-orders, hopefully this year. I won't stretch it any further than that because I don't want to be a company that takes people's money and produces nothing. We have got a couple of unsigned talents that may slip their way through that list. But as it stands, that's the running order at the moment. Pre-orders for the 2-pack and 2 cold should be by the end of the month.
I love that. I love the transparency also, and I love the promise to deliver figures in a timely fashion and properly. And that in and out of itself is a podcast episode, but we won't go there.
people think running a toy company is very cheap, and it's all about how much money you make, and it's not, because to be honest, I float with breaking even and being in the red, and whilst there is plans to make money, and we will make money successfully over time, at the moment we are having to successfully juggle between pre-orders, between paying talent, between paying artists. Luckily all the team understand what the vision is going forwards. There are things I would have changed, maybe not signing so many straight off the bat, but we did need to make a stand to show people that we're serious.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of smoke at the minute with Powertown running away with the pre-order money.
Right.
That's an extreme case, I believe. I would imagine that most upstart companies do have to balance pre-orders against release orders, I guess.
Right.
PN News, for example, when you take into account the costs versus how much we sold. Now, we had a very good successful sale, but it only realistically, covered the setting up of the business, the talent signing, the factory, the shipping, the taxes, the import fees, PayPal fees.
Right.
My financial advisor I have to pay for at the end of the year and stuff. So people do think that independent companies are out there just to steal the bag. I think some are, and I think most aren't. So for me, I ask for patience and I ask for support, and everything that we promise you will get, which is why we're not ultimately doing a Powertown. This is why I only like to do 1-2 releases at a time, because I don't want people to have ill thoughts towards us with money sat in the bank doing nothing. It's always doing something. We're just not out there buying trademarks, I guess.
No, but you're recycling the money in the way that it should be in order to produce more, as opposed to what other people are doing.
The more what I found is, however many social media posts we make, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, our our customer base grows when the product's in hand.
Right.
So we've got to do our best to, manage finances, but also still keep relevant, keeping things on top. And just people are saying like, what series is? There's no series. It's just as and when. At the moment, it's going slower than I would have liked, because our factory took. They had another client which took a 1 million unit order, which put us right on the back burner because we're nowhere near 1 million units, which is fair.
Jeez.
Yeah, so we obviously had to take a step back on that, which slowed us down a little bit. But we're doing everything that we can, the best that we can, and everyone will ultimately be happy with what we do. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, no, neither do I. I think you guys are putting out a solid product, and fear not moving slow, fear standing still, and you guys are moving.
If any famous people or celebrities or rich people want to, every other company's got their own rich celebrity. We haven't yet, so if anyone wants to, jump on, I'll send you my bank details. And
need a sponsor, need an endorsement, I'm with it. All I can offer is free voiceover work for commercials. I got you for that. That's it.
It'll never be free. We'll always pay with something, but we'd take that.
I got you guys for that. But this was so dynamite, and I can't wait till this drops tomorrow. Thank you, and best of luck to the line and to you. And I can't wait for all this. Thank you all for joining us on the following conversation scheduled for one fall. This is the Voice Genre Tees. We'll see you next time.